Are we ready to go? It looks like we have all board members. Superintendent, you're muted. Oh,
I think we're good, Mr. President Griffin.
okay. I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll start with roll call. Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Present.
Trustee Land.
Present.
Trustee Lees Dwyer. You're muted, but you're present.
Present.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
And I'm here, and as our student board member, will he or she identify themselves, please?
Yes, I am Taylor Wong. I'm the student board representative from Burlingame High.
No, welcome. Okay. Superintendent, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay, I'm going to start with the readout here, and we'll catch it up here in a second. We have our Spanish interpreter this evening, Mr. Montaldo. For those who would like to attend the meeting in Spanish, that option is available. Mr. Montaldo, if you can please communicate that when we will open up the interpreter room. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes. Ustedes están asistiendo a la reunión del directorio del Distrito Escolar Unificado de San Mateo. En breves instantes podrán tener acceso al canal de español, a través del cual podrán escuchar las diferentes presentaciones de hoy. Muchas gracias.
Okay. If you wish to view closed captions of this meeting, please view the meeting on the SMUHSD board meeting YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube channel can be found on our website. You may view the captions in English as well as we live stream our meeting tonight. And you may view the captions in a variety of other languages if you choose to watch after this meeting has ended. Viewers may request additional accommodations by calling 650-558-2201. That's 650-558-2201. Okay, and we would like to welcome this evening our student board rep, Taylor Wong, a senior at Burlingame High School. Taylor will be giving a report later in the meeting. Okay, there is nothing to report out from closed session this evening. Staff has requested to pull item N6, and we will bring that back to a future meeting. Okay, I would like to ask you to join me in a moment of silence for two members of our SMUHSD community who passed away recently. Charlotte Frances Murdoff, a senior at Burlingame High School, passed away at the age of 18 on September 22nd after a long battle with cancer. Char attended North Hillsborough School and Crocker Middle School. Char's favorite sport was soccer, for which she spent most of her youth playing. She made many lasting friendships through her soccer teammates and had a left foot that could send a ball soaring into the corner of the net. When handed the diagnosis of osteosarcoma prior to the start of her freshman year, Charlotte used her fierce competitive spirit to battle this rare bone disease. She stayed positive, resilient, and strong throughout the course of her disease. Char spent, my screen went to screensaver. Char spent most of her high school in and out of treatment, and always with a beautiful smile on her face. She loved going onto the high school campus for classes, lunch, periods, or sporting events. When cancer eliminated most of Charlotte's athletic options, she pivoted and learned to play golf, making a spot on the BHS varsity golf team. Char celebrated good days and got through bad days, keeping a positive attitude and facing challenges like the true warrior she was. Char was funny, determined, stubborn, creative, full of grit, and yet a sweet friend to all. There is no one quite like Charlotte. She will be missed by all who knew her. Okay. Bill Dascarolas passed away on September 26th at the age of 83. Affectionately referred to as Dasco, Bill started teaching at Aragon in 1963 and retired from teaching in 1997. He served as the athletic director from 1971 until 1996 and was head track and cross-country coach until 2017, 20 years after retiring from teaching. Dasco is in the Peninsula Sports Hall of Fame, the Crystal Springs Course Hall of Fame, the Aragon Hall of Fame, and was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by the California Association of Coaches. He also received the Central Coast Section's prestigious Distinguished Service Award. In 2014, the Aragon track was officially named the Bill Dascarolas track. Bill took great pride in his relationships with faculty members across all departments and was masterful at working with the different principals at Aragon. Many considered Bill to be a dear friend who was loved and respected. Aragon has indeed lost another icon. Please join me now in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. This is a public meeting of the SMUHSD Board of Trustees. If you wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comment section at the beginning of the agenda, please send an email to comments@smuhsd.org. That's comments@smuhsd.org with your name, email address, and your Zoom name if different, and the item under which you would like to comment. The board president will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. And I think that's gets us to communications to the Board of Trustees, and I'll acknowledge a letter from the San Mateo County Office of Education. Now, public comments. Ms. Chalkley, do we have any?
We do. We have two tonight. We have Laurel Peters and Christopher Westling, who have both been promoted.
Okay. Laurel Peters, please, 3 minutes.
Hi. Let me see. Hi. First of all, I just want to, I think I can see everybody's face for the first time. No one's wearing a mask. I feel like I've been getting to know you over the last few weeks, and I've even kind of done some research on some of you. I just appreciate you. Again, Dr. Skilly, your emails out from the very beginning of this have been comforting. And I just want to thank you for your service. And I wanted to talk again and wave the flag for the unvaccinated. And I know that in a way that it's kind of moved up higher up the food chain into the governor's office on now it's not just extracurricular activities, it's being at school in public. And I understand that, and I see the importance of vaccines, and I see that maybe this should get in the lineup. I just see that for children 18 and younger, they have no control over their vaccine status.
Mhm.
And as their parents make this decision for them, they're going to be pushed out. And I know maybe you're thinking, well, you need to tell the governor that, and maybe I'll write him a letter. But I just wish it was back in your hands. I wish it was out of your hands, because you're our governors. You're my children's governors. You rule over our children. And I just wish it was back with you guys. But it's not. I'm thinking back when I was Zooming. I work in the school district, and I think back when I was Zooming and what it was like for a child to turn on their camera and know no one was home. And not even the blinds were open, and they were alone by themselves, and this glaring light from the computer would light up their face, and I could see that was the first light they'd seen, that they rolled out of bed and they turned on their camera. And I found myself sometimes calling homes and talking to the mom and say, go into their bedroom and hand them the phone so Mrs. Peters can say, get up and get to class, and I'll splash some water in your face. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Just the concern for children, and what a dark place that was. And I'm really worried. When Dr. Skelly was leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I heard the word indivisible, and I remember Ms. Lee Dwyer saying so early on, like, this could really divide us. I'm really worried. I hope that we are indivisible, and that we can make it through this, and that we can find a way through for all the children who seem to be mostly safe. And our numbers are amazing too for our state. Quickly, I know I have such a few seconds left. My sister's a principal of a high school out of state, and I called her very early on when we were getting these conversations rolling, and she said, geez, are you in a hotbed of infection? And I said, no, quite the contrary, and so I just hope that we're a nation of states, and we're a state of counties, and we're a county of districts, and I hope that somehow God causes this to come back into your hands, and that you can make a decision based on our numbers for our kids, and that you would be encouraged and have the power and the freedom and the heart to keep all the kids together and not isolated off alone in some dark room. And anyway, thank you for listening.
Westling.
Yeah, first, I'd like to point out that the Zoom link on your website doesn't work. So I wonder if this is even a legal board meeting for your policies, which I can't seem to find, even though I use Google really well. So that's an opening, just sort of statement. I had to email comments at whatever it is, .org, and thank you, Ms. Chuckley, for emailing me the link. But is this even a legal board meeting if it's not open to the public? I see my
Comments. Your comments, please.
Okay. So Ibrahim Kendi defined in his work on anti-racism, asserts that those of us with privilege, and I'd say everyone in this board meeting has privilege, to fight for the rights of those with less privilege. And he defines through his many works and talks, a racist policy is one that puts undue burden or a disproportionate burden on one ethnic group over another. The governor's vaccine mandate, if you look at the numbers of the unvaccinated, is targeted 70–80% on people of color. It is, by Mr. Kendi's definition, a racist policy. Now, I thank you for not continuing with the discussion about a county sort of policy. And I wonder, at a school board that flies the BLM flag, that fights racism, the question I have is, what are you going to do to fight the governor's racist vaccine mandate?
Mr. Wesling, just so you know, during public comments, the board does not engage in a conversation with the speaker. So, if there's a silence there, that's why.
No. I was ending on a question. It's a report.
Okay, so your comments are done. I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Comments, board comments. Trustee Land, I saw your,
Actually, mine's just a point of order. I am concerned that our link is not active to be able to invite people in. So is there somebody that can check that?
Yeah,
Because-
I'm getting texts that the link works fine.
Okay, because again, now we're at 40, but we were at like 20 for a while. So I was a little concerned, but I see people coming in. So it must be public. Thank you.
could be the Giants game.
And I
Yeah,
had
I hear you.
somebody text me from the Giants game who is doing both. So I won't name that person, but it's working.
I wish.
Okay. Other comments from the board?
We know it's not one of us. We're here.
Okay, any board comments? Trustee Andrade Zuniga?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Buenas noches. I just wanted to acknowledge that we are on Renita Shaloni land. And I want to acknowledge that Monday was Indigenous Peoples Day for all peoples across the world that are Indigenous. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of the contributions and just everybody that is working hard towards equality for people that are Indigenous. Next, I wanted to also remind people that any sort of disability access they need for the meetings, like President Griffin had mentioned earlier, please request it when you need it. Also, the youth organization Youth Disabled and Proud is having another workshop for students and youth with disabilities on Tuesday, October 19th. We're going to be featuring Eric Harris, a disability rights activist, specifically through policy, through the Disability Rights California organization. So if anybody's interested in that, there is that event. I also wanted to acknowledge World Teachers Day that was on Tuesday, October 5th, and Custodian Day that was on October 2nd. We have great teachers and people in our school communities that do great things for our youth. Last week, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors had approved a resolution to create a commission that will oversee mental health and trauma services through the juvenile justice system in our county. And they will have one representative that will be the chair. I believe that it's somebody through the Juvenile Justice Commission, but this commission is important because they will definitely speak to and oversee all of the services that are provided to our youth in the juvenile justice system in this county. There's also another resolution that they had passed around, it's called All Homes. And it was a resolution to continue to close the gaps between affordable housing and people that need housing in our district. And that definitely affects, or in our county, sorry, and it will definitely affect the students in our district. And I wanted to also thank everyone for allowing me to share at the professional day on Monday. It was a really great experience, and I'm glad I was able to be amongst the community of our school district. It's really great to meet everyone, even though we're not in person. But I also wanted to mention that Aragon High School is going to be presenting the AIDS Memorial Quilt, an AIDS Memorial Quilt series of events. So I just wanted to commend them for their activities around National AIDS Awareness. And I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Trustees Lees Dwyer.
I was just going to add to what Ms. Zuniga said about Monday the 11th, because I have a San Francisco calendar here and it says Indigenous People Day, People's Day and Italian American Heritage holiday. So I celebrated the Italian American Heritage on Monday, and I think Italians have contributed a lot to this country. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other board comments? Trustee Land.
I'll just add that you all forgot that October is Principal Appreciation Month as a principal. I just want to acknowledge all the principals who don't get acknowledged. So congratulations to all the principals and thank you for all your service.
Funny you should bring that up. This is my comment. I was going to have it for the consent agenda. We have the transportation drivers appreciation week. And I'm going to propose that we modify, because it's been a bone of contention, that we modify the agenda. We get all the recognitions up front and we read them out. And we get them out there. We have what we have to say. We're trying, and the reason it has been on the consent agenda has been to try to get, keep the meeting going. And so it's a proposal that will get the recognition right out front. Everybody will get, I won't say equal time, and we'll try not to let interlopers interlope on it. We'll get the recognitions crisp, clear, and appreciate everybody. So that would be something I'd like to see added to the, but it's not on the proposed modified agenda deal now. So I realize it might represent another little twist. So having said that, we are on the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull an item? Yes, Trustee Lee Dwyer.
I'd like to pull J16, which I believe is exactly that item.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and then I just had a question on J2. It's just a simple question. Is this, and Nancy might be able to answer it, we can move on. J2, is this a new contract or is this the renewal of an existing contract? You're muted.
My apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is an existing contract. The not to exceed has been increased on the contract. So we brought this contract a couple of months ago with a not to exceed. It involves special education transportation,
Right.
which, as the board knows, continues to be with the driver shortages across the nation, continues to be an issue that we continue to deal with. And so
that's fine. I just wanted to make sure it was a renewal.
Yep, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Second, is there a second? If you made the motion, I'll do the second.
I didn't hear the motion.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, well, I had
With minus 16.
Yeah, and then I second that.
Okay, well, I had a question on one of the items under the, I believe it's under the contracts under J3. I can try to ask a question and somebody can answer the question and save us an extra motion. It concerned the field trip, because I was looking and it's a significant expenditure, but I didn't see any cancellation clauses. Are there in fact cancellation clauses? If things were to change and, health conditions or some other unforeseen event. And the last time I asked this, I think everybody will remember, it was the Aragon field trip to Asia or something. And I asked the question, right. and then we were going into that. Does the San Mateo contract have any protections for the district and the students?
Mr. Hawkins, do you have an answer for that?
The deposits are non-refundable on the trip, President Griffin, but we do have protections on payments not made.
But I think the last payment has to be made before the trip occurs. Is that considered a deposit, or is it only the initial amount the deposit?
All payments would be considered deposits until then, but there is a payment schedule and they are considered deposits until the trip actually happens.
Okay. Is there a way to purchase travel insurance that might hedge against the unforeseen event?
I absolutely can look into that and work with the school on that to cover our potential risk.
Okay, and do the students and everybody involved fully understand the implications of the cost and the likelihood, you know, and what could happen in an unlikely event? We ought to make them fully aware.
I will confirm that, President Griffin, and send something to the board to confirm that they have been made aware of that fact.
And it does say all payments are non-refundable.
Yeah, that was the part I
In
saw.
caps, in caps.
Yeah, that was the part that I saw that had kind of distressed me, because I think there's $100,000 in total on the trip. So we're gonna pull 16, and we've got a motion from trustees Lees Dwyer and a second from trustee Land. All in favor of the consent agenda, trustee Andrade Zuniga,
I vote yes.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustees Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley, you're muted. I read your lips though.
Yes.
Yes. So that part passes. J16, I think it's J16. Ms. Lees Dwyer, trustee.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think, yeah, going back to what you said earlier, I believe that we should have resolutions at the top of our agenda, and we should talk about them and share about them at that time, and they should not be on the consent agenda. So I'm pulling it off. That's why I pulled it off.
I was just going to say the same thing. I want to thank both of you for bringing this up. I think we do a lot of recognitions, you know, when we have people come in during, you know, at the beginning of the agenda, when we have the superintendent talk, and, you know, we thank them and we congratulate them for different things. This is the same thing. Having a resolution to acknowledge someone for, or acknowledge a group of people is very important. So I think we need to set time aside at the beginning of the agenda, just like we do for what we used to do was in person and you know, congratulating people. So I think it's important.
Is there a motion?
I move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Motion and a second to recognize Driver Appreciation Week. Trustee Andrade Zuniga,
Yes.
trustee Land, you're muted.
Yes, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Trustee Lees Dwyer, I think that
Yes.
was a yes. Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes. So we passed the recognition of the Driver Appreciation Week. And I think we got through the consent agenda, and we're gonna go to regular reports. Report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Let's see, I want to start by saying that I've been had reason to interact with superintendents around the state and nation lately. And I have to say that the divisiveness that we you know, is present in other communities is just really high. And it made me really grateful for where we work and the fact that we can disagree agreeably. I think that's characteristics that's lost in a lot of places. And, you know, the board has to make some tough calls. You guys don't always vote 5-0. But my experience is for now 6+ years is that maybe one item later or two items later, you never know who voted for what and what happened. And I think that's a sign of maturity and not maturity, I guess, but the professionalism and the high quality work. And I think it spills over into how the organization works as a whole. So I do want to acknowledge the board's work and our collective culture on that score. Since she's here, I want to take this opportunity to introduce our new Director of Transportation. I'm glad she got to hear the comments about the week of School Bus Drivers Appreciation Week. She will not be starting, unfortunately, before this week begins, but she'll be starting shortly thereafter. I want to welcome Ms. Kelly Hubbard to the district. She went through a grueling process here as we tried to select somebody worthy of Mr. Dan Dobbins, who led the department ably for many years, and the bus drivers that we have and the community that we serve. And I think we have somebody here that you're going to really enjoy having join our community as an employee. She lives in San Mateo now, and we're really excited to welcome Ms. Hubbard to the district. And we talked yesterday. You don't get to talk for 30 minutes, but you get to talk for a couple of minutes and just introduce yourself. So take it away.
I'll start with unmuting myself. Good evening. Thank you for offering me the opportunity to join the San Mateo Union High School District. I am super excited to be joining you. I'm confident that my experience is going to help successfully lead the department. I promise to uphold the long-standing reputation that not only your district, but as well as the transportation department has had for such a long period of time. I've been in the industry for approximately 25 years, and I can remember always hearing about San Mateo Union High School District and their equipment and their facilities and their leaders within the department. So to have finally been given the opportunity to join you and be a part of that and be a leader, I want to thank you. I look forward to being able to deliver reliable and safe service to the students of San Mateo, as well as meeting all of you in person when the opportunity presents itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's see, I want to mention just a couple of things. Next week is the Unity in the Community activity. That's on the 19th, which is next Tuesday evening. We look forward to that event 3 times a year. This is the first meeting. This is run with by the district and the Black Parents Association. And we had great success with it last year. We look forward to welcoming parents, both from our district as well as our partner K through 8 districts. Next board meeting on the 28th, the board will have a study session where we'll bring in students from all of our schools and listening to their issues and concerns and things they like about the district, things that they would like to see us change in their experiences here. And we look forward to that. That will start at 5:30, I believe. And so that means closed session will be before that. We are happy that the number of cases, COVID cases, is down quite a bit. We're at 40% of the level that was present on September 1st. Our county and California continues to lead in the cases, and I think that's a tribute to the steps that our students are taking, the steps that our staff are taking. And so we appreciate everybody's efforts to keep our schools safe and open and doing great things for students. Things on the campuses are moving along well. We're well into the fall season. I can't see the face, except at lunchtime and outside. I can't see the smiles on people's faces, but it's really, really nice to go out and visit campuses. I'm trying to visit every campus and spend some office hours there to meet with folks, and I bring ice cream during lunch. And even though people are working hard and there's a lot of things that bring us down, I can't I just hear from everybody how appreciative we are to be back in person and seeing our students and serving them in that way. We, like all districts, are having issues around staffing. We're working hard to get appropriate staff. We've sent a recent letter to recent graduates of our district about considering careers in education. Ms. Hubbard, who just spoke here, in her interview, she mentioned she started in this business at a very young age, and now she's continued to do that. And so that's where we get some of our greatest employees are people who start young and stay in this community for a long time. So we've offered that out, and we've already gotten some responses there. So in closing, things continue to move along well. We're already 7-8 weeks into the year, and we really appreciate everybody's hard work going forward.
Student board member, Taylor.
Yes, thank you, President Griffin. Thank you, Board of Trustees. I'm just happy to report that this past week at Burlingame, we've been doing activities called a program called Break Down Walls, which has been started 2 years ago in 2019. As a sophomore, I was not able to participate, but I'm so glad that as a senior, I participated actually today. And I just love seeing how everything has changed. I think it was especially needed, especially after COVID. A lot of people were experiencing problems, and it's just so nice to see people that you would normally not see together come together and like realize that we all suffer from issues, we all have our own problems, and realize that we are a community. Despite everything that happens, we are still, San Antonio Union High School District, and we're always here for each other. So it's really great to see everyone. It's really great to see everyone. I also just want to thank everyone for everything you guys do. It's really great to see everything. Shout out to Principal Belzer. I saw you there today, and it was really great to see. I personally just really enjoy how staff were included too. Normally, it feels like all of our activities are just mostly oriented toward us students. But I really feel it's important to bring everyone, students, staff, teachers, everything, just to show we are one big community. That's all I really have to report, but one last thing I would like to bring it back to what Trustee Zuniga said. So October is Filipino American Heritage Month, as well as LGBTQ History Month. So I just really appreciate everything we're doing to recognize these sorts of events, including at BHS, they're raising the pride flag every day, which I love. And I think it's important to remember that even though these months are designated assigned months to recognize heritage, it's really important just to celebrate diversity all the time and not just think about it as limited to certain race. So I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Nicely said, Taylor. President.
I think you're up, next, Mr. Childress.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I was saying Mr. Childress, and nobody could read my lips.
Through the chair, thank you. Good evening, President Griffin, members of the board, district cabinet. I'm going to take a little different tack than the two speakers regarding vaccines and the governor's, and really it shouldn't be categorized as the governor's mandate. It's really a state mandate. I really think it's important to recognize the significance of that position and that movement. The one thing that can get us back to school and keep us in school and keep kids safe and keep the community safe is to ensure that we create access to the vaccines for all parties, for all people. It's only logical that we should add that to the list of required immunizations for the school districts. The idea that we are being discriminatory or racist or any other exclusionary descriptor is simply preposterous. The district has worked hard and diligently to provide outreach and support for populations and socioeconomic communities who have been averse to the vaccines or maybe perhaps not have access to the vaccines. So I think it's somewhat, it's a straw man's argument that I think that we shouldn't be focusing on nitpicking the details, and we should be focusing on moving forward and what's best for students and what's best for schools. I agree with Dr. Skelly that it is wonderful to be back in person. There are still lots of challenges, and I recognize that. But I'll just go back to the idea that we need to be vigilant. We need to maintain protocols. There are too many stories and too many reports of not only students, but also staff who may or may not be as diligent as we would like them to be in terms of following the protocols. We need to be on task and focusing on safety at all times. That's the only way we're going to stay open. To that end, I'm surprised that the proposal for extracurricular vaccines is not on the agenda tonight, unless I missed it. I'm hoping that that gets discussed in the near future, and I hope we move forward with it as in the endeavor to, again, maintain school safety and keep programs and schools open. The last thing I'll say is that despite the delay in implementing the vaccines for all until next year, there's no reason to wait. In fact, it's probably irresponsible to wait to provide more outreach and provide more support in vaccinating all students and all staff as we move forward. It's really the only way we're going to get out of this pandemic. Yes, our numbers are great. As Ms. Peters said, we are not in I think the word was a hotbed of outbreak. And that is absolutely true. But the main reason for that is because our vaccination numbers are so high and with respect to compared to other areas. We need to stay the course, and we need to remain vigilant, and we need to move forward with the best interest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. K4, report of the CSEA Chapter 519 representative.
Ms. Chalkley, do we have a speaker?
We do not have a report of CSEA tonight. They'll be back at the next meeting. But we do have Ms. Ackerman from the adult school.
Okay. Report of the San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association, K5. Good evening, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you tonight for listening to us. I am Paula Ackerman from the adult school, and I would like to thank the district and the board for allowing the adult school to come and participate in the anti-bias study that we had. And it was very interesting, and we appreciate being part of the study. We will continue with it when it comes up again. I would like to tell you that our numbers for enrollment at the adult school have been interesting. On our ESL numbers, we have 124 returning students that are either they have skipped one semester, but they're back starting again. We enrolled 261 brand new students who are either in the morning, evening, or afternoon, or in a one-on-one class. We enrolled 385 students total in the different ESL programs this fall. And the big requests were for hybrid, evening, all levels, and for high beginning. Both AM and evening classes are for beginning 1, 2, and 3. Adaptation is the hallmark of the adult school, and once again, we are putting that into practice. We have Halloween traditions adapted to current conditions, and these traditions are an important means to connect across classes and programs and building community for a sense of pride and unity across our school. Giving ESL and active adult classes in a variety of means, Zoom, hybrid, in order to meet student needs. We are working with teacher shortages, just as in the high schools, and doing our best to make it all work for the students. And our ESL numbers are small, but we're keeping them busy and doing what we can to meet their needs every day. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me come to talk and share our experiences with you. Good night.
Thank you. Moving on to special reports and appearances. L1, report on the district certificate and classified staffing. Dr. Black.
Yes, good evening. Each year we provide a presentation to the board that summarizes staffing. This year, however, we're focused mainly on responding to district goals of increasing diversity of our staff. I would like to thank the many individuals who have contributed to this presentation, certainly to the HR department, who never fail in their unwavering dedication to staff and students, but also a big thank you to various members of the Equity Advisory Committee and the Social Justice and Equity Committee who took time to review and develop the strategies contained within this presentation. We will start with district personnel-related goals. One of the board's goals this year was to increase staff diversity to reflect the community we serve. Two of the related metrics are, number one, a 3% increase in people of color in our certificated staff this year, and then to increase that by 12% by the school year 23-24. One of the LCAP goals this year is similar, and that was to increase the number of new hire people of color to reflect the diversity in our community. And these metrics call for across the board increases in the top 5 categories on the slide here, with the largest increase concerning Latinx new hires to increase to nearly 38% of all new hires. Now, this is a stretch goal of the LCAP committee, and we do intend to do all we can to meet it. Last year, a sizable number of staff, students, alumni, community members, and formed a task force that was then called the Black Lives Matter Task Force. This group examined the district as a whole and presented deliverables to the board last May. 3 of the HR-related deliverables are on this slide, and they're number 1, to create a diversity recruiting position. Number 2, train hiring committees on anti-bias paper screening and interviewing. And number 3, institute a more uniform process that includes interview process that includes questions about anti-racism and equity. Now, to meet these goals, we intend to improve our recruitment and retention practices. Recruitment has always been a strength of the district in terms of attracting strong interest in our openings. However, recruitment of diverse applicants and ensuring that we are a welcoming place for diverse staff are both areas where we must improve. In order to progress towards our diversity outreach goals, HR staff is continually training and hoping to expand and improve our practices through the things that we learn. This includes the district's anti-racist and other equity professional development. One insightful training this summer was called How to Retain Black and Latinx Staff and Dismantle Turnover, led by Michael Lowe. And another one that we're looking forward to attending is the Inclusion 2021 conference. And it has a lot of interesting tracks here that we look forward to. Several HR members are involved in the 3-part cultural intelligence series that concludes in November. And additionally, one of our HR generalists is poised to sit on the Cal State East Bay's Transformative Leadership in Disruptive Times Program Advisory Council. Marketing for diverse candidates. So last year we created a hiring equity flyer that we share both virtually and in person. It highlights the district values towards equity and inclusiveness and showcases our professional development on implicit bias and anti-racism. The district's advertising has expanded and continues to expand to targeted groups with whom we want to attract. One such advertisement was in the Our Community USA publication. Some of you may have received it. It's directed towards our LGBTQ+ community and supporters. We also advertise on interactive websites like Glassdoor, which is a popular one and allows the district to create an inclusive presence and interact directly with job seekers. We have listservs of alumni, as Dr. Skelly mentioned, to market our job opportunities. Dr. Skelly sent a message out earlier this week to alumni. We also communicate our job openings with our families through various means. Expanding recruitment to more diverse population is our top focus, and we post our teacher job openings at 138 universities, 26 of which are historically Black colleges and universities, and 39 of the 138 are in the list of the 100 top colleges for Latinx enrollment, including the top 6 listed on this slide. Now, posting at these universities is just a first step, of course, something that we want to do, but the more important step is developing personal contacts at these universities for recruitment purposes. Advertising on their job sites provides us access to the personnel, and we leverage this to develop strong personal connections and to help us find diverse people for our openings. This coming teacher hiring season in the spring, we're excited to have a new tool for teacher recruitment. This is a $5,000 incentive for new hires who move to the Bay Area, along with $1,500 in moving expense reimbursements. This approach is based on the fact that counties with the highest populations of Latinx and African Americans are almost all out of the Bay Area. This slide contrasts the Latinx populations, for instance, from the Bay Area, between the Bay Area counties and California counties. Most of these out of Bay Area counties have double in terms of the Latinx populations and percentages. And it indicates that hopefully our relocation incentive will help us expand our recruitment and generate better results. We have recently partnered with teacher residency programs, 2 of which are the Alder and Marshall programs. Alder is a County Office of Ed sponsored program that specializes in credentialing aspiring special education teachers who are currently classified employees in our district or somewhere in the county. And the percentage of people of color in their teacher residency program is currently at 65%. See, Marshall is our newer partnership for the teacher residency program, and it covers all credential subjects, not just special education. But like Alder, it is very diverse. It currently has 68% of its teacher residents identifying as people of color. Both programs provide living stipends to teacher residents and prepare them for culturally responsive instruction and assist them with job placement after the residency ends. Next, we're going to talk about an inclusive and empowering district culture. Marketing or making the district a conducive and thriving place for people of color is critical for retention, as we are a district that is quickly improving our culture, and this is evident by the results of our equity training in recent years and the engaging introspection that our current anti-racist training engenders. These practices are augmented by other PD opportunities extended to staff, such as the Black Teacher Leadership and Sustainability Program, which is a series started in the summer and continuing this month. The district's new teacher program has the goal of instilling in our new teachers district values through training and enabling them to effectuate these values to students. And the good news is that we will begin our teacher induction program this January. Last spring, the board approved a hire for our diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. This was our second DEI consultant, and the name is DG Consulting, Coaching and Consulting. They've already made a big difference in our recruiting practices, as we will explain later in this presentation. The district promotes commitment towards an inclusive culture in many ways. Our approach through this is, one example of our approach to this is the Unity and Community presentations, which are public meetings presented in combination with the district's Black Parents Association, and focuses on our endeavors to continuously improve our inclusivity. The district offers safe places for its staff and students where positive changes can happen, such as teacher and student affinity groups, and also committees like our LGBTQ+ Advisory Council that reconvened this month. The district is committed towards increasing staff diversity, but once we attract that diversity, we must value the rich differences that encompasses and ensure that all identities and orientations are included in the planning and decision-making that goes on in the district. The board does a great job acknowledging that diversity does improve decision-making by publicly stating these sentiments and passing proclamations and board resolutions. The school sites are cognizant of the importance of staffing assignments and try to avoid the stereotypical placements of people of color, balancing that by what they like, what they want to do. And we try as a district to avoid racial or ethnic isolation of individuals at a particular site, a school or work site. As you heard at the last meeting from the principals during the permanent teacher celebration, we have had significant success hiring from within, mostly instructional assistants as teachers over the past 3 years. We've had an impressive 13 instructional assistants become teachers in our districts over the past 3 years. 46% of these are teachers are people of color. We're very proud of all 13 of them and hope to do more of this. The district actively assists our current IAs who want to become teachers through reimbursements for their college courses or credential courses. We often pair district office administrators to personally meet and guide the instructional assistants through the process of becoming teachers. And additionally, we partner with intern and credentialing programs and help pave the way for the IAs to realize their dream of becoming a teacher. Another area of success has been with teacher interns. The district currently has 10 teacher interns this semester, 4 of which are people who identify as people of color. The district has a good track record of hiring interns and continuing with them beyond their internship. A new development this year, which should help in this regard, is an MOU with the district's teacher association that the board approved at the last board meeting. And this provides course reimbursements similar to classified for all teacher interns. Many of our interns struggle with the tuition, and this MOU will provide some, hopefully some substantial fiscal relief to them. As for student teachers, the district partners with several diverse credential programs, such as all of the local California state universities. Right now, we have 15 student teachers, 6 of which are people of color, and all of these teachers, all of these student teachers are welcome to apply for a job in the district, and often do become either interns or are able to get a job in the district as a probationary teacher. In terms of developing teacher leaders and leaders in moving teachers into administrative positions. The board has approved the hiring of individual coaches and mentors for our administrators to ensure that their success. Specifically, we have coaches, individual coaches for 3 African-American administrators and 2 Latinx administrators. Our former superintendent, Samuel Johnson, is one of our mentors, and we also contract through the Berkeley Principal Leadership Institute and the California Association of Latino Superintendents and Administrators for coaches to administrators. Recruiting. So recruiting is one step, but making sure the hiring process has an equity focus is imperative to our goals. HR has been providing hiring committees with a guide on how to manage implicit bias in the hiring process. This here is a 2-page guide that committees received, and it provides specifics related to forming diverse committees, avoiding questions that may elicit implicit bias, and ensuring fair evaluations of candidates that honor all of their qualities and attributes. Our DEI, or our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consultant, our DEI consultant, provided us with a script that we could read to interview committees, hopefully before they are considering diverse applicants. It highlights the differences of both the candidates and the panel members that should be valued and shared for their diversity. And the script is to be read before the interviews begin in order to guide panel members towards an open and productive state of mind. Our DEI consultant also found an excellent implicit or anti-bias assessment that is linked to this slide. These are given to panel members before we start the interviews, and kind of gives them a sense of, their personal implicit biases. We've tried several of these instruments in the past, but this one is the best for this purpose. Many of the others took too long and didn't really get to the point. And this one does. It's 4 pages and does a really good job of being fair to the person, but pointing out, the answers at the end here point out that there are areas that, you can improve upon, but certainly areas that you need to be aware of while you're assessing the candidates who are interviewing before you. Also, our DEI consultant provided us with a video that we want to give to our panel members before the interview begins. And it's a video, it's just over 2 minutes in length. We won't
implicit bias.
Hear the whole thing.
Implicit bias. 2016 was the year that implicit bias went somewhat mainstream.
Yeah, so when Hillary Clinton mentioned implicit bias in the debates, our phones started blowing up, all our friends started emailing us about it.
But what is implicit bias? Implicit biases are basically thought processes that happen without you even knowing it. Little mental shortcuts that hold judgments you might not agree with. And sometimes those shortcuts are based on race. First, some clarity. Saying someone has an implicit bias is different from calling someone a racist.
So the video does a very nice job of explaining stereotyping and implicit biases. Including equity-focused questions in interviews has become more common practice, and it was one of the deliverables from the BLM group. This slide has some questions that we're working to create that will provide a sampling of equity-focused questions and possible responses that committees can consider. Actually, our DEI consultant has suggested that we use the same equity-focused questions at each interview. So, it'd be consistent among all of our interviews, and then look for the specific responses that are highlighted in red and may change as we develop the use of these questions. Okay, so interview procedures. Our DEI consultant has reviewed our interview procedures and has given us some things to think about, 3 of which will be in this presentation. First, these links here are checklists and procedures to our current practices that have evolved over the years. This is a checklist, a quick one-sheeter for the lead, the hiring lead to follow. And then the other one is a full-on procedure of several pages. Now, this slide has suggestions from the DEI consultant that would centralize interviews. Currently, the district's job interviews are decentralized. They usually occur at the school site or the work site. And this process that we currently have allows for more direct stakeholder participation, site-specific questions, site-based decision-making, or work site, school site or work site. But our DEI consultant wanted us to consider to maybe hold interviews or most of our interviews centrally, as some districts do, and this would ensure better consistency and allow for the committees to be highly trained and more experienced in interviewing and certainly in guarding against biases and that sort of thing. So that is the suggestion that we're going to look into as we go forward. Another suggestion is the interview committee size. They have some limits here towards classified, certificated, and management. They feel like a smaller size would be better because of the training of the individuals, the consistency, and just the ability to maintain a consistent process with a more limited number of people. Currently, our procedures don't have a limit, and sometimes we have very large committees. And again, that allows for more participation, but may be difficult and present challenges in making sure that we're confronting biases that may be included in the process. Okay, and another DEI consultant recommendation is to consider a different ranking procedure. Currently, the district uses a ranking system where candidates are ranked by each of the members in the committees and the interview committees, and they rank the applicants from first to last or highest. And the committee discusses each candidate at the end of the day and reaches consensus on who the general rankings to move forward. The DEI consultant suggestion here is to forego that system, instead use a go, no go vote, where any candidate that received a majority go votes would move forward to the next round. So this process could result in a larger number of candidates going forward into the second or final rounds, but it would eliminate the need to rank similar candidates that could be based on biases. So this is another thing we want to look into further as we get our reviewing committees on our procedures. Get our reviewing committee started, that's going to look at our procedures. So before we end the presentation, we wanted to go through some data. First, our new hire data. Our new teacher hires for 21-22 were significantly higher than our student population in our African American group, but lower in Asian, Filipino, Latinx, and Pacific Islander groups. Over the past 3 years, we have hired more diverse candidates and higher percentages than we have historically, but we have not met the target or anywhere near our targets of matching our student percentages in our certificated hiring. So hence the need for our efforts to expand our outreach and improve our selection process. It's better news on the classified front. Our classified new hires are much closer to representing our student population. In fact, we hired more African American, Filipino, and Latinx candidates than our student percentage. And now, those are the new hire data points, and now we'll go into whole district data. This here shows the staff breakdown by association or unit, and with 50% of our employees being in the teachers unit and 44% in CSEA. This slide shows gender and non-binary breakdowns and average ages. in terms of the non-binary, the district does provide new hires with a choice of non-binary, but we haven't always done so. Therefore, teachers who have been in the district never had the choice to indicate whether they were anything but male and female. So last week we sent out a survey asking staff to reconfirm either they're male or female or choose non-binary, and also provide us with their pronouns. We haven't received them all back yet, but we're over 80% in both the, or over 80% in certificated, and I think in the 70% are classified. We'll send a reminder and then get, so this data on here for the non-binary may change and grow as we get to the final feedback of our staff. So the average age of our teachers and classified kind of mimic the state average, which is 63% female for teachers. We're close to that at 61%. The average ages of our employee groups are in the mid to late 40s and early 50s. These really haven't changed much over the years. So this is the certificated ethnicities and how our staff, our certificated staff ethnicities relate to our student. The red arrows here show highlights where there's some definite areas of growth on our Asian, Latinx, and Pacific Islander groups in our certificated staff. And then this slide is our classified staff, and we have a much better representation, or at least representation that matches our student demographics in the classified staff. Next steps, there are a number of next steps. The first one would be to convene stakeholder committees or focus groups to review our recruitment, retention, and hiring practices. Number two, based on that feedback, we'll revise our procedures, and then we'll train staff on them, provide screencasts that can be utilized at any time on the revised procedures. Number four, we did this years ago, but I think things have changed in the way we look at words and whatnot. We want to review our job descriptions and revise them as necessary for word biases, and same with our policies. I think our policies are pretty good, but there are words, and there's a whole list of different words that either attract or distract people, either females or people of color or whatnot. And we would like to go through our job descriptions and our marketing materials and make sure that we don't have words that are going to cause someone to look the other way and not value our district or not apply for jobs in our district. Number five will be to continue our outreach for diverse applicants and cultivating contacts at the universities and other job agencies. We'll continue to enhance the district culture for inclusiveness and provide professional growth opportunities to staff, HR staff, and staff in general. And we hope that we'll have an opportunity to update the board on some of these next steps in the spring of 2022. So that is the presentation, and I look forward to any feedback you might have, and thank you for your attention and interest over the course of the presentation.
Can you take the presentation down?
Yeah, will do.
Okay. Craig, you've had your hand up for some time. You want to?
Thank you. No, I appreciate this. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. What I do want to talk about is the original, how we started this years ago on the board, how we really pushed for equity issues to be the forefront. And I really want to commend our superintendent and his staff for really pushing this forward over not just 1 year, but extensively over several years. It seems to me that we're really making headway, and I applaud Kirk. Your department is doing great in this area. I love the examples. I love the examples of the interview and what you can do, and even the language that was included. And thank you for putting that as part of the presentation, because I think it was important to mention that. Some of my thoughts on the subject, I still think we have a ways to go. Looking at the hiring, we have made some improvement, but not much. So we still have some hiring to do, but I will say you are really searching and going into many areas. And I think that has really shown our efforts, and I really appreciate that. And I think we're heading in the right direction by going into all these areas. Do you want to take off the presentation and maybe?
I'm sorry, Greg. Yes, we have the TSG technology here doing it. There was something wrong. So that's why I just opened the door. And I'm sorry. Bob, we're working on it.
All this stuff going on. It's like, I don't want my words to be lost here.
No, not at all.
Okay. So
I don't know what the problem is, but
all right, I'll finish
with my computer.
Okay, I'll finish with this. I think we're heading in the right direction, but we have more work to do. I think we're on a journey, and this was the next step. And I'm really glad that we had this presentation to talk about the in-depth detail in which we are making some changes. Whoa, okay, now that's weird. All right. Okay. The last thing I would say, the only thing that I am concerned about is when you looked at the recommendations, there was definitely some here and there. The one that I would weigh in on the most would be, I have concerns about centralizing interviews. I think you really have to look at what is needed at the level. I've seen where it could be detrimental to a school when it's centralized and input from the school is missing. And I really have some reservations about that. But I also see the other side where as long as we have our training and our implicit bias training, and we talk about that at the school level for hiring, and we have the district set up professional development for hiring, I think we can make a big difference. Oh, there we go. Hello, we're back in the gallery. Anyway, that's my feedback for that one area. I do like the idea of smaller groups when you're interviewing and bringing in diverse voices. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. Very, very thorough. I really enjoy numbers because it validates what you're saying. I wanted to also, along with what Trustee Land was saying, one of the things that is always important to me is to hear what the students want. And so in terms of in interviewing people and things like that, do we have any input from students in terms of like implementing that into our hiring practices and in the questions that we ask people? The students are the ones that ultimately are the ones impacted by all of this. I also was really impressed with the consulting firm that you used. It's always really important to me to not only want to say that we want equity and inclusion, all this stuff, but hiring and working with organizations that are equally as diverse. So it really speaks to their mission and what they're really, if their organization is not a diverse organization, but yet they're saying, oh, we're here as consultants for diversity, then it doesn't translate for me. So I'm glad that this particular organization that you're working with the human resources stuff is definitely diverse. I also wanted to include in a lot of the, I guess, interaction with the community, like Unity in the community and the Black Parents Association. I think that's awesome. And moving also further, in our district, we also have like parent organizations that are Spanish speaking, and I really want to see other groups come about of different populations. One of the things that I really also want to see in hiring is culture and intersectional culture, for example, with disabilities, because disability culture is very intersectional. We have all kinds of culture, different races and ethnicities, and people that will identify as different, different types of identities. And so I really want to make sure that we're also hiring people that are identifying as having a disability, and that is equally as important. And number 6, and I'm sorry, I couldn't write down the title fast enough, but of one of your slides it talked about the culture. And one of those things with disability is to be accessible. So for example, like tonight, I'm glad that there weren't a lot of images, but when we have images on slides or even have slides in general, to be able to read them out and describe the slides, because that will be inclusive for people who have visual disabilities. And so things like that, and making sure that our meetings are accessible to everybody, making sure that in our schools, there aren't barriers for people that have different types of disabilities. And, I know that there's a ton of different ones, but making it as inclusive as possible is very important. So again, I thank you so much for this. And yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
Trustees Lees, Dwyer.
Okay, I really don't want to repeat things, but I'm going to probably repeat just a little bit. I really like how you're reaching out to different schools. I'm hoping that we are focusing a lot of energy at the local CSUs, East Bay, San Francisco, San Jose State, because transitioning to live here from living in Merced or Fresno or Bakersfield or different locations is very difficult due to cost. And I think that we need to be really sensitive to that. So I'm hoping that we're focusing a lot of energy on the CSU East Bay, San Francisco, San Jose State people who already understand the expense of living in this area and can make the transition easier. I really appreciate that we're going to help them, but they have to be able to stay. It has to be sustainable, and I think that can be difficult. I like that anti-bias assessment. I'd really like to take it because I feel like I am not a real biased person, but I really like to see. I'd like to see the test results. So maybe you could send that to us so we could all take it, all of us, and kind of see where we come out on that. I agree on the centralized versus decentralized. I prefer decentralized too, because I believe that we need to have fit within the culture of the individual schools. And I think that each school has a culture. And also, the more people that have the training, the more people that understand how to hire and how to follow good hiring practices, the better. And you never know when someone is, going to go into another position in another location within the district. So I think that we really should stay with decentralization. We could train more people that way and reach more. The growing from within, I think that's absolutely the best way to grow our staff, particularly people who the people we're really looking for to empower and to grow, because we may already have them, and if we can bring people in at these where they fit one place now, but they have the opportunity to grow into something more, we've done a lot for that person, for our district, for our students, because those are the best examples that you can give. So I'm very excited about that. I think the student teachers are also it's a very important program, because we are a welcoming district. We're a well-staffed, well-funded district. And if you want people to stay in education, I think this is the place to bring them in and encourage them, because we can do that. So anyway, thank you very much. It was really good. And I think I could go deeper with this presentation. Thank you.
Couple of comments. I don't see any other hands waved. It was actually a good presentation, and apparently, a whole bunch of people must have put a lot of effort into preparing it. The one thing that we were talking about associations, and I know there are a couple that I'm aware of in California, and the California Association of African American Soups and Administrators, and the California Association of Black School Educators. And, one of the issues I think when you get into recruitment and retention has to do with the people above you looking like you and being able to relate to you. And we've had, people in positions from time to time, but I think, we can't wait for people to climb up the food chain here to get to the top of the pile. So when we get the opportunities to recruit at more senior positions, we really need to be aware, because I think that will really impress the candidates as to opportunities. But enough said on that. I did like the reimbursement program because I think that also allows you to kind of take initiative that you couldn't, economically, you might not be able to take to climb up and and improve yourself. I also like the selection process change to go, no go, because when you're pitting people against each other, and I've gone through the rubric and the numbers and people moving to the either the left or the right and all that. But I think the no go doesn't necessarily pit people directly against one another, and you can get pretty subjective in your evaluation, based on some criteria. And the last thing, I have no idea what is right or wrong, but we've had two people weigh in on decentralizing the recruiting. And I don't know that I have I think you could do it either way, but I think when you decentralize, if there is a culture, we've seen pockets of things, people think alike, they speak alike, they act alike. If you don't fit into the mold in a small environment, you're not easily accepted. They don't, if you're left-handed and the whole rest of the world is right-handed, sometimes, sometimes you have a difficult time. So, I mean, we just have to I think we have to look at it, try it, see what we can do. Everything, we don't live in a perfect world, but certainly, I mean, that's a thought, and I could kind of see, well, is that help us or hinder us? But I think the bias training and the self-assessment probably should help people. But some people that don't want to be helped, it doesn't matter what you take, what you write down, how unbiased you profess to be. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I appreciate the report. Any other comments? Okay, that was for information. L2 COVID related expenditures report.
I think this item is Mr. Simmons, but before we do that, I'd like to thank Dr. Black and the personnel folks for putting this together. And then sort of as a community, I think while he did a great job presenting, these are values that everybody shares in the organization, and his leadership is really helpful there. I think, let's see, Mr. Simmons is here, and we are at 8:30, so we'll keep moving, and we've got quite a few presentations. I don't know why I always say that right when you start, Mr. Simmons. I apologize for that.
I'm sorry to take it personally. But that's no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Griffin, members of the board and district cabinet. As the board requested in late summer, I'm here to give you the first update of what I imagine will be a few regarding the first few rounds of expenditures related to the various pots of federal and state money that the district received to support schooling during the pandemic. Next slide, please. During this presentation, I will provide a brief overview of the various funding sources that we received and the purposes or allowable expenses associated with each of those funding streams, both federal and state. I'll then review at a high level how we have spent those resources up to August 31st. And then I'm going to conclude with an overview of the final set of resources that we have received from the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund number 3, resources for feedback and input from you all. Next slide, please. This slide is the first of 3 that outline the 3 primary buckets of funding that we have received and the intended uses of those resources from the folks that gave them to us. The Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, which is outlined here, was the first round of funding that we received in the spring of 2020, and it was intended to support issues that arose out of the immediate closure of our schools that started, as you know, in March of 2020. As indicated here, that this was intended to be used for all of the initial things needed to support health and safety. Next slide, please. The second slide of this series outlines the next set of federal resources, ESSER 2, that came during the 2021 school year, intended to assist districts with all that came with distance learning. As you can see, it was intended to be used for health and safety, as well as supports for students, including technology, student nutrition, and mental health supports. Next slide, please. Finally, this last slide is one that you've seen a version of this before back in the spring of 2021. It outlines the various potential uses of the state of California's resources codified in Assembly Bill 86, We shared these categories with you when we presented how we plan to use what came to be called the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant. It was really intended to support the return to in-person learning in which we are currently engaged now. We will revisit how we are expending those resources later in this presentation. Next slide, please. This slide is intended to give you a general sense of the entire set of resources we received as of June 30th, 2021. If you add these slices of pie up, we've received close to $14.8 million during the first 18 months of the pandemic. Each of these slices of pie represent different allocations, both federal and state. The federal resources are the coronavirus relief, which I've referred to already, and these ESSER funds. The state resources are GEAR. GEAR stands for Governor's Emergency Relief Fund. That's the state of California, obviously. Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, in-person instruction grant, as well as the learning loss mitigation, and this is the state version. So that the state and the feds also didn't always coordinate the names of these buckets of money, so sometimes there was some overlap in the names. Next slide, please. This slide is an overview of how we've spent all of the money so far. And this is sort of commingles all those various funding streams into one sort of giant pie to give you some general sense of things. So thus far, we spent about 7.6 million, with more to spend during this and the next school year, obviously. This chart reflects expenditures made up to August 31st, 2021. You can see the bulk of the resources have gone to support the significant investments needed to support distance learning, both hardware and software. That's that giant sort of orange half of the pie. The next largest category of expenditures was the investments in PPE, sanitation, and supplies that were made for health and safety. After that, there are various investments in professional development, extra staffing, and other COVID-related needs. I'm happy to give you other examples if you need them. I will now go into each of the various funding sources and outline broadly how the money was spent. Next slide, please. So this Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund resource, which is probably the smallest of our Pac-Man mouth openings here, was the first of the federal funding. And as you can see, it was spent on equipping our schools with PPE and sanitation supplies early in the process, when we thought we actually might come back, if you can recall, in the spring of 2020. So this more traditional looking Pac-Man slide is the first one set of state resources that we received. GEAR, or the Governor's Emergency Relief Fund, was also used to address the various supply needs we had early in the pandemic. Next slide. So then the Coronavirus Relief Fund, federal funding outlined here, was mainly used to support our technology investments for distance learning. So it says supplies, that's the category that we use in the funding, in the funding categories. But basically that was the investments we made in technology. It also supported some of the extra staffing investments we made to support students and staff when we were doing pods and all the other things where we required extra staff last year. Next slide, please. Oh, I think I went the wrong way. Sorry. The Coronavirus Relief Learning Loss Mitigation. So this too was used to support our technology investments for distance learning and extra staffing. Yeah, that's it. Next slide, please. And then in addition to the federal learning loss mitigation resources we received, we also received state funding of a similar form, and we used it to also support our distance learning program. And I would say that a lot of what came one other thing I would say is I've talked a lot about hardware. That's both the Chromebooks and the Wi-Fi hotspots, but there also was a tremendous investment in software, online platforms, digital software, the Edgenuity platform. We had an expansion of that. So we had a variety of software platforms that enabled that supported our distance learning program, and really accelerated, honestly, our digital teaching and learning in the district. Next slide, please. This next source of resources came in the spring of 2021 to support the return to in-person learning. And it was used to support the increased staffing needed then and now, as well as the technology we needed to support our teachers as they taught classes using Zoom from our classrooms, right? So we had a transitional moment where we went from teaching from home or from work for our staff to then all of them coming back in March. And so we needed to make investments in equipping our classrooms to facilitate, headsets and other things teachers needed to be able to Zoom from the room, as we did last year. And then you can see here where we then have further expenditures that were both in and out of the classroom. Next slide, please. Finally, this finally with regard to the various pots of money, this slide is a reminder of the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant that we reviewed last June and actually had approved by you all last June, and how we've spent it thus far. and then ultimately how we intend to spend the rest of it. This is just things like on an expanded summer school program. So we did do that, and you're going to actually hear about the expanded summer school program at our next board meeting, as well as various interventions and supports that we anticipated needing when all students return to school this fall. We will obviously update you all on the full expenditure and impact of these investments in the spring. Next slide, please. So to conclude, we have a final set of federal resources. Well, final for the moment, because it's unclear how much more there might or might not be. This final set of federal resources called ESSER 3 that we will bring, assuming you all agree with the broad categories of investment outlined here, to our next board meeting for approval. Given the fairly extensive outreach we did in the spring related to the ELO grant, we think that using these resources to extend or amend essentially the core investments that were outlined in that grant makes the most sense. You can see on this slide how we plan to do that, but obviously also invite your feedback at this moment. I will say as I finish up that Mr. Hawkins and the instruction team do plan to bring to a future meeting our plans for unwinding these one-time resources, investments rather, since we know that that will be critical for the long-term financial health of the district. And I'm happy to take questions now.
Mr. Griffin, you're on mute.
Sorry, Trustee Hanley. I said top to bottom, so that's my best.
Thanks. This is a great update of where we've been, and we've obviously had to cover a whole lot of expenses in the last 18 months or so. What I'm missing and what I'm hoping we're going to spend some money on, or and maybe we've spent some that hasn't shown up here, is assessment of where are our students right now, and what I need some data. I need some academic achievement data, and I'm dying for it right now. I don't know where they are, and I need some outcome data, and I just don't see that we've spent it. We spent a lot on intervention programs, but I need some results from those programs, and I need some ongoing information about where we are, what's happening with the learning and the outcomes of these efforts, and where are our students right now, and what kind of adjustments do we need to make for the rest of the year. What can you tell me about that, and what plans do we have, and what have we done so far?
So we definitely, so partly we've as usual, we have classroom-based assessment that's been going on since the beginning of the year to assess where students are. Simultaneously, we administer to all of our ninth graders the reading inventory assessment, which we administer every year to get a sense of where our students are diagnostically, if you will, with regard to reading comprehension. We had earmarked resources in the expanded learning opportunities grant to invest in some common assessment development, because we just feel like an off-the-shelf assessment, benchmark assessment, is not the right approach for us. We need to build something sort of from the ground up instead of like picking questions from some testing bank. I mean, there may be a little bit of that, but I think what we know is that we need some common assessments that really are about the core skills that we want students to be able to demonstrate for us. So there is some resources built into the ELO grant to invest in that work. I know that we have a history in the district of having a common assessment regime that sort of fizzled out about it was actually like 6 or 7 years ago. So do know that we are planning to get back on that horse, but I will say that our emphasis at the moment really with our anti-racist district initiative is really putting a lot of our chips onto that table, if you will, and really investing in sort of the why work before we then have the conversation about, okay, so if we're really trying to see more equitable outcomes for students, what do those look like? What is an assessment of that kind of learning that's culturally responsive? What does that look like? So we feel like we need to kind of go slow to get to a place where we engage in sort of more traditional benchmark assessment. Which is what I I think you're referring to is sort of the more traditional, how are students doing with regard to standards attainment and things like that. We will get there. I do trust that we will. I just think that we're right now really focused on that. We're trying to keep the main thing, which really is this anti-racist initiative into which we are investing a tremendous amount of resource, time, and energy. We really want to do that well. And I would defer to Dr. Kemke if she wants to add anything to it, but certainly she can.
Oh, I don't, I certainly don't disagree with that. But the whole point of that is to increase, student learning and achievement. And so you've got to measure that, it seems to me, as you go along, rather than saying, waiting till I don't know what you're waiting until exactly, what the end point is that you're going to say, we're done with that. Now we measure whether students are actually learning more because we did this. It seems to me you can measure as you go along, can't you?
We could, and we do. And again, I will say that the sort of, while I know there are concerns about grades, those are still the core measure that is used for college admissions. So that is a measure of students' performance, right? So which is obviously mitigated by teacher, practice and all of that. But I think the point is that so it's not like we're not paying attention to how kids are doing and what they need, but I think that our emphasis at the moment really is on the why before we get into the how and the what, because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves in terms of what it means to be working in a culturally responsive environment that we really are looking to create. I would also say that, Panorama is another place we're looking, because we're really also investing in the whole child and the growth of our students on our Panorama survey and the social emotional skills that they have that we're trying to equip them with in our classroom. So I don't know, I would, I'm happy to have Dr. Kemke, respond if you feel like you want more information, but I think, our focus on this year is really on street data and really understanding student need before we move into, more formal kind of traditional assessment. But we hear the need to absolutely pay attention to how students are doing, Mr. Hanley, absolutely. And we're doing that.
I'm concerned because, we sent out this memo about 6 weeks ago that I saw that, said we were going to be easy on grading, is the way I interpreted that memo. So I put less stock in grading than I usually do, and I don't put a huge stock in grading, as you've heard from my comments over the years, because it's subjective by nature. It has value, but it's subjective. So we're making it even more subjective after I read that memo. We're making it really fuzzy this year. So I'm even more concerned now that I've heard your response. I'll leave it at that.
Trustee Andrade is Zuniga, and I'll just interject. Oh, sorry, Trustee Land.
Yeah, it was Land.
I'll interject. One of my favorite terms is street data, and that's what I really want to hear: the street data of assessment that where we are. So anyway, Trustee Land.
Okay, and as my wife comes home and the dog is barking, my apologies. What I would like to say is, I hear both sides of this story. I think from my perspective, it would be from a board perspective, it would be great to get some data to see where learning loss is and where, if there's the achievement gap, is it widened, what happened? Those are some things I think Peter's talking about, and I think we need to have some sort of information on. So I think, however that goes, I think we need to have that sort of given to the board so we understand where everything's at. I think my creative thinking on this would be what is happening at the site level to be able to assess the situation, because I think maybe we don't need to look at like grand universal data, but more data that's at the site level and in different subject matter areas, and they probably still have common assessments, that they're using in to certain grade levels, but where's the growth? Where's the separation? It'd be interesting to see if we can get that data. It's a little harder to get, but it might be something worthwhile to look at. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about data. My comment, totally separate, was I really appreciate this presentation, Brian. It was really comprehensive. I really like the breakdown. I'm going to say I think our district has done an excellent job in spending this money. I don't think all districts have done this. I think we really invested in the right place. I think no criticism to many school districts, but I think some districts may not have done exactly what we did. And I think we made wise investments. And when I say that, I really mean we did our job well. I think you invested in, a lot in technology in the right ways. I think we did our PPE. I think we did a lot of the things that needed to happen. And I think as a result, we used the funds wisely. So both departments, I want to applaud, not just the C&I department, but also the finance department and where we've put money in and spent it. So I really appreciate the breakdown. I really appreciate where we are spending money and where we're going to spend money. On that note, I will turn back to, if you look at that last slide, maybe assessment needs to be in there in some degree, and where we're going to spend some of that money is on assessment. So I'll give a plug to Peter on that one. All right, that's it for me.
Trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to agree with that too. And more in the micro, there are some communities that had a disconnection even with services. Like even though the district was able to put a lot of money into technology and things like that, there were still a lot of disconnections. And so I don't know, and I can't really speak to process right now, but going and getting more specific information from people that even in grades and things like that, like how are we extracting that information, but in communicating to them, that this is the information we need from them. For example, like what if their grades are suffering, what were the circumstances to that, because not everybody is different. I mean, not everybody's the same, excuse me. And so that I think is what I want to know, is like the more micro, because it's not equal and it's not the same for everybody. Specifically, I'm thinking about our students in ELD. It's been very tough for them. So I don't know what I guess what would be the process, and you don't have to answer it now, but just like thinking about that, how can we get that information from people that might not even understand why we want this, or trusting the process that things will even change. I just really want to know, aside from just test scores. Thank you.
I wasn't sure if I should respond or not, but I think you were just, some of it was rhetorical, so I won't. I wasn't sure if I should respond or not.
Well, either way, or we can talk offline, whatever is better.
Yeah, and I will just quickly say that we're taking notes, and I'm noting like things to come back with in terms of some more. We do have some information we can share about student kind of the situation with students right now, so we can do that. I think we'll figure out the venue. We have an academic presentation coming up later in the year, and so we can absolutely speak to some of that and hear from you all, via weeklies about kind of what would, and via the superintendent, kind of what would make sense.
Thank you. And that also spoke to, students with disabilities as well. It's there's no cookie cutter like mold that, everyone's going to fit into. So yeah, thank you.
Trustees Lees Dwyer.
Okay. I thought the presentation was very interesting, and it had so many details, and you just blew through it as fast as you could. But I think I still think, I hate to say this, we should have more meetings so we can actually spend more time on things, because things like this, it seems like everything that comes before us merits more time than we give it. And I don't know how that can be fixed if it can. One-time money is great, but I think one-time money is also terrible, because as a buyer, you have to avoid the glitter. and you've got to look for the best value for the dollar, despite the fact that, oh, wow, this is free money, but nothing is free. And if you don't maximize the benefit to the students from it, then you've really kind of not done what needs to be done. And that always worries me. The other piece is one-time money creates expectations that, wow, I have this now, it's going to continue. And I'm really glad that all of you are working so hard to manage expectations and to make sure that the funds are spent in a way that benefits the most people, the most students, the most teachers, the most classified, that we get the most that we can for it, because hopefully we will never see this again. And I really do hope that. I really disagree with Peter on testing. I agree that common assessments are necessary and we should certainly do them, but I've never taken a subjective math test in my life. I had to work the problem out and come up with the answer, and it wasn't like choose all. It was A, B, C, and there was no D, all of the above. It was, I either did the algebra equation right, I did the geometry work right, or I didn't. So I think that, and I also think like when you're, when it comes to like English, economics, history, either they did it then or they didn't do it. Either the book had this in it or it didn't have it. I really don't believe things are as subjective as Peter believes they are. Street data. Okay. They put speed bumps on my street, and they also redid things. They made this like circle thing, and they made it so traffic had to split and go different directions, and it's all very pretty, and cars are bumping along, and there's noise, and it's pretty, and it's all fresh, and the lines are all bright colored and all of that. But they created blind spots when they did it. So now as you come around this one corner, if you're going to back out of your drive, and it affects me, but the other people on the other side of the street more, when you go to back out of the drive, you have a serious blind spot because the person that you were going to see before is now going around a tree and coming at you. So I think that in doing this work and looking at the street data and all of that, we have to watch out for blind spots, because blind spots exist, not only on my street right now, but they exist in our work. And we have to pay attention for those, because it's easy to get sold something. It's easy, gee, it looks so great on paper, but then you start playing it, and it's just not the same. So I think we have to pay a lot of attention to blind spots as we use the rest of the funds to the best benefit of everyone. So, and if you come down my street, drive slowly, because there's a lot of bumps. And yes, it's the same street the district office is on. So thank you. Great job, Brian.
I know the superintendent wants to comment, and I see Trustee Lamb, apparently you never took your hand down. Do you have a fresh comment? Okay, well, I want to comment. I'll never get in again. The thing about this, and at best, this was a snapshot, and I'm sure we could go much deeper. And I think we have to look at this as a sort of a portrait or an oil painting or a graphic depiction. Because I do think the financial audits that follow this will look in and examine closely, or far more closely, the details. Now, I think there's a lot of money that was spent by the government on education, on jobs, and on all kind of stuff. And I think our job was really to spend it so we benefited the neediest. And this kind of goes into assessment, which I gotta recognize. Again, Peter was the one that talked about this, because the neediest are the ones, and I'm not sure we know the neediest and how to spend that. I think the district, at least from looking at the presentation, which was detailed, it's about accountability and responsibility for proper management. So I think we planned and we did as good a job as anybody could, getting that much money and having to plan and do and execute that quickly. So the only other thing, I wondered how many other districts in the state of California got money and how well they managed their money, because there is a boatload of money that's in the state. And, there's a term in auditing, and it's fraud, waste, and abuse. And, we have not heard stories, which is thus far good. We have not heard stories about the money that went into education similar to the money that went into the PPP program. You know, and it you know, I hope everybody else did as good a job as we did. So anyway, Trustee Land will save the superintendent for last.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mine just kind of reiterates all I wanted to say was what I talked about with how we spent the money. I think we did a very good job, and I think Linda brings up a very good point. I think, unfortunately, in education, sometimes we get these windfall funds. I remember many years ago, oh, look, we got lottery funds, or we have to spend it before X amount of time. And it always is, it's a mismanagement nightmare for most times. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think our district, just looking at it in detail, we have done an excellent job in how we've spent the money. And I hope we can continue to do so. So I'm just trying to give a kudos out to, yes, I recognize what both Bob and Linda you're saying, and I think we have done a good job, and I hope we continue to do the good job.
Superintendent.
I just want to make a couple of comments. We struggled with the assessment piece that Mr. Hanley mentioned before the pandemic, and we're certainly going to continue to do that at the high school level to get kids to take high stakes tests who are not college bound is really a challenge for us because it's just the nature of the beast. I think you have a chance to get some street data next board meeting when we have a study session with students. I'll just say one thing about a comment that a teacher made to me, that when they came back in person, they gave a more difficult problem and a more challenging environment and a more challenging problem in like the first week of school than they could do the whole time when they were in distance learning. So the complexity, some of those pieces, and maybe Mr. Land, you've seen the same thing, just the opportunities in person that you can really challenge students. It's just a totally different thing. And I think it's a good question for us to ask a teacher focus group or another group, like, what are you seeing among kids here? One of the groups that we're measuring are a group of ninth graders in our system who were who first of all, weren't ours, and 10th graders who weren't ours, or haven't really been with us in any meaningful way yet. And we're 8 weeks into the school year. So when you start assessing those students, you've got trauma, you've got learning loss that wasn't ours. There's just a whole bunch of pieces here. So anyway, this is a good question. It's one of the many things I like about this board. You guys want to know, are kids learning? And that's really an important piece for us. We want to know how kids are learning, how they're feeling, are they safe, and the experiences that they have here. So I appreciate this discussion, and we'll be debriefing it on Monday and discussing what we do next.
Okay, I think we need a motion to approve this report.
I make a motion to approve this.
Trustee Lees Dwyer, were you trying to second it?
Sure.
No, I heard somebody.
I tried to make it, but maybe I didn't make it.
No, I think I did.
Well, yeah,
Then
Trustee
I'll
Land.
second it.
Okay.
Trustee Land made a motion. Trustee Lees Dwyer made the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land.
Yes.
Trustee Lees Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Why are we voting on it though?
It said you had to. It said approve the report to the board and the community.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, I think the best
It's a
way to
report.
approve it. Okay, now you interrupted the vote, but I think it was Trustee Hanley's turn.
Yes, I vote yes.
Yeah, and I'll vote yes. So, okay, we'll move past that.
Wait, Land didn't vote, did he?
I did, yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
All my fault. You can blame me. It's the speed bumps.
I know those
Okay.
speed bumps.
Okay, we're gonna move on to M, construction, M1, schematic design.
We have a series of presentations here by Mr. Hawkins and other folks from the construction team. And I believe you have somebody that you'll introduce to us tonight, making his debut at a board meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Hawkins?
That is correct. That is correct. First, I want to say that good job, Mr. Simmons. I think he'll recruit him to help me do my financial presentations going forward. So thank you so much. With me, we have Todd Lee from Greystone West, a very familiar face over the last 15 years in the district, our construction management company. And we also have Mr. Jose Quintana, our new capital facilities manager, and he is joining us on his birthday. So I wanted to thank him. Jose comes to us from Desert Sands Unified School District, where he's worked for the last several years in their bond program. Before that, he was in charge of a whole lot of money for the United States Navy and Marine Corps, supporting buildings out at 29 Palms. And before that, he was in the Navy itself on the, I believe on the USS Nimitz. So I just wanted to thank Jose's been on board for about 2 months now. We finally are going to give him a single day off tomorrow, but he's with us tonight. So I want to say thank you. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Todd Lee over at Greystone West, and he'll introduce Erwin and Lee for our Transite panel projects, as well as the rest of our team as we go through M2 through M4 on our evening of schematic design presentations. Todd?
So good evening. I'm going to try and beat Mr. Simmons' time. I don't know if it's possible, but we'll move quickly here. So we have 6 projects to present to you tonight for 2022. The first 3 are Transite encapsulation projects. And we're going to start off with Lee Pollard from Hipser Yamuchi Architects for Hillsdale High School. We're going to move to Erwin Lee for Aragon and Mills, and then I'll follow up with budget and schedule. Kind of one of the unusual aspects of these tonight. We're coming to you for approval on scope, budget, and schedule. While there are some representations for colors and graphics, that area requires a lot more study, and we want to get these drawings wrapped up and into DSA. So our plan is to come back to you at the end of the calendar year with more details on colors, graphics, finishes, etc. So I think we're getting close on that, but you're not voting on those items tonight. So with that, I'll hand it off to Lee Pollard.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Todd. Getting a lot of feedback. Sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Any advice for him?
Try again.
What we understand is you have 2 mics on, Mr. Pollard. If you could turn one of them off, that will help you immensely.
Okay, thank you. Can you, is this?
That's much better.
Now?
Yes, that's much better. Now you've turned 2 off, it looks like.
Okay, I turned 2 off. Now I'm back.
Yes, good.
All right, so why don't you, let's go to the next slide. Am I still getting feedback for the rest of you?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to start off by presenting Hillsdale High School. And so let's just go to right in and start with the next slide, please. Our area of work on this project is 5 buildings at Hillsdale. Those are the ones marked in red on the screen. There are 2 buildings, the admin building up on Del Monte Street and the new science building further down the street, that we're not doing any work in terms of encapsulation, but we are going to paint some of the structural steel and plaster so that it looks like the rest of the buildings. Next slide, please. Beyond just simply the exterior of the building, our scope will include refurbishing the concrete at the ramps between the different levels. We intend to replace the guardrail panels that are right now basically look like chain link fences, and we're going to try to make those match the rest of the upgrades to the building. We'll replace the lift at the entrance off of 31st because that's an accessibility issue. And then we're also going to replace the large roll-up door grates that are shown by those red dots down towards the theater and the gym. Next slide, please. These are a couple of photos that show you what's going on at each of the schools, around the school. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm sure you're all familiar. We've got the transite panels that are old and dated. We've got glazing at some of the walls in between the various courtyards that has been replaced by plexiglass and wire glass and all sorts of stuff that we're going to clean up. And then, of course, things like those rolling grates that look pretty sad. Going on to the next slide, please. Besides the encapsulation of the transite panels, we are going to do some painting upgrades to make the rest of the campus kind of fit together into a single scheme. And I'll show you that in a second here. Next slide, please. For example, the library building and the upgrades to the theater building have things like that mustard yellow that really doesn't fit with the rest of the colors that we're going to do. So as long as we're going through and painting, we're going to repaint those walls and some of the exposed structural steel so that everything when we're done matches our new design, which I'll get to in a minute. Next slide, please. So one of the other things that we're going to do is the main student entry is at 31st. And if you approach that today, it looks very dark as you're going in. So in talking with the school site, we realized that one of the things that would really help both safety and visibility would be to add some large skylights along that walkway that goes in so that we can kind of clean up and brighten up that space. We're also going to add some wood siding to hide the old CMU and concrete walls that form the edges of the ramps going into the school. Next slide, please. So when we do this, the look will be changed dramatically so that it's much more open. It gives you a better sense of entry into the school and kind of fits with the look that we're proposing for the encapsulation. Next slide. This is the 31st Street elevation of the entire campus down the middle. As you turn and go into that ramp, that's the elevation that you see up on the upper part of the screen. And then as you turn around towards the athletic field sides, that bottom elevation down there is what that looks like. I recognize that these are really small on your screens, so it's going to be really difficult for you to kind of get a sense of it. And so we did a few little blow-ups of various areas. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Along 31st, if you start kind of at the high end, that's building 100. Our intent is to replace the transite panels with both smaller panels and larger fiber cement panels and have a kind of a variety of colors that soften the look of the campus and give it a little bit of interest. The smaller panels will be used primarily at the around the corners and entries, and then the larger panels will be used in the large spaces in between. And the intent of the differing sizes is to kind of give the entire break up a little bit of the elevation a little bit so it has better flow to it. Next slide, please. So this is kind of as you move further on down the 31st Street side, and it kind of shows you how that would look as those smaller panels have the different colors. The other thing that we are going to do, and this was requested by the school site, was we're going to replace a lot of the signage on the site. A lot of it's kind of painted on stencils, and there aren't very good wayfinding signs. So we're going to add signage both at doors and kind of at the overhead on the balconies so that you can, as you're walking down, there'll be signs that tell you which direction to go for counseling, admin, that sort of thing. Next slide. This is a detail of what we're going to be doing in the wall sections as we go there. The dark purple is the transite panel. We're going to put a layer of rigid insulation on the outside with fiber cement panels on top of that. And then on the inside, we're going to add some framing and insulation and gypsum board to encapsulate it from both sides. That interior work will only be done within the occupied spaces. Altogether, this solution provides us with a number of benefits beyond just simply encapsulating the transite. It's going to improve the energy performance of the building significantly because we're adding insulation for most of the outside of the building. It's going to improve acoustic performance within the classrooms. That transite panels are really thin, and if you're in the classrooms, you can hear people yelling outside really easily, and so this will make it better. We are replacing most of the glazing with new dual plane glazing, and that will add to the energy efficiency and also kind of the appearance of the various qualities of glazing that they have out there right now. In addition, the Division of the State Architect is going to require us to do some accessibility upgrades, and so that will mean that we're doing some work in the bathrooms, lifts, ramps to make the space more accessible to everybody. And finally, it'll kind of modernize the look of the entire campus. That's my presentation. And so I will turn it over to Erwin Lee with HED Architects. Erwin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Lee.
Okay.
If we go to the next slide, please. So we're doing both Aragon and Mills High School, and they are similar in construction, similar in looks, and they have the similar problem that we're trying to address with both of them. Next slide. So what we did is took a survey to find out on the buildings which of the walls, exterior walls, that we're going to have to encapsulate. And the encapsulation, gives us the opportunity to enhance the appearance because we can basically create a blank canvas on it. So the blue represents all the walls that we'll be covering up with a new exterior assembly. Next, please. So here's some slides of the existing, and you can see both, you see the glass, you see the transite panels, you see the different conditions that exist around the site. Next slide. So we came up with two schemes to look at. And again, as Todd had mentioned before, the colors are really more of an indication symbolically because we still have to work through these colors with the site. This is where we arrived most recently with the site. And so you can see we're introducing a combination of colorings, bandings, some super graphics that are identifying offices and things like that, which are difficult to locate right now. The buildings, as you know, look a lot alike everywhere you walk around the building. We're going to introduce new signage. You see on the lower right, for example, as you enter the different wings, we're going to try to articulate it, call it out with new signage, and introduce signage so that when you're walking parallel to the building, you can see the signage. So this is the first scheme, and it's really banding. We're going to introduce the logo as well, the Aragon logo. Next slide. Here's the variation on that. And this one, we're using a diagonal, which is kind of an abstraction and a motif of the A in the Aragon logo. And you're going to see that, we're trying to sprinkle that throughout the campus and particularly around entries and significant corners. Next slide. Similar to what they're doing at Hillsdale, we're going to be providing an exterior wall, which will have board with plaster on it, which will kind of create a homogeneous surface where we can start to do other things on it. And in the back where the transite panels are exposed, we're going to put a new interior wall there. Next slide. And, one of the things that these enhancements are going to do in addition to, providing the exterior a new appearance to it, but it will provide safety, thermal and acoustic quality. Safety because we're going to be covering up all of the transit panels and so you won't have contact with it. We'll be changing out some of the glass so that we'll now have laminated glass instead of the dangerous plate glass there. And as Hillsdale is doing, we'll increase the thermal insulation in the building, and that will improve indoor comfort as well as lowering energy consumptions. And by changing some of the glass and adding some of the insulation on the exterior wall, it will enhance the acoustics. So similarly on Mills High School, we can get into this one. This is the entry at Mills. Next slide, please. Again, the blue outline delineates where we're going to be encapsulating or putting the new exterior wall. Next, please. Some slides of the different kind of conditions. There will be replacing some of the roll-up doors and the glazing. As you see, there's a lot of glazing as well as the doors. Next slide, please. So here are some images. We're looking at this triangular shape, this motif, which is meant to be an abstraction of the Viking sails on the boats. And this was something we talked about with the staff. They like the idea of this reoccurring motif. And you can see here on the interior courtyard what it might look like. Next slide. Here again, a different condition interior. You see at the entries to various buildings wings, they're enhanced by signage and by color. Next slide. Similar to Aragon, the wall assembly will be virtually the same. Next slide. One of the other components to this project, which is actually an independent project of it, but we're studying it at the same time because it's part of the budget. There was a big interest by the site to improve the entry and to create more shade. And there's a lot of kids that wait near the door there, but it's quite a distance away from the street and the actual drop off. So part of the idea was to create some shade structures that would bring the entry kind of closer to the street. On the right, you see kind of what's there now, and we're suggesting that maybe the right half can be removed and replaced with a new configuration. Next slide. So here's the proposal as we talked with the site staff. Again, these shade structures would be triangular in geometry, picking up on the Viking sail again. And in the plan on the upper right, you can see it's a lot more organic, kind of a more natural look than the rigid geometry that's there now. And I think that's it. Next slide. It's Todd.
Okay, so now the boring part. I think I'm handicapped a little bit by the fact that I went back to my first budgets for these projects were done in 2012. So this one's been around for a long time. The good news is on aggregate, we're well under budget for the 6 projects, just over $19 million below the Measure L project list budgets. So as you can see on our standard budgets, we've got in this case, a 15% design contingency, a 10% construction contingency, the standard cadre of fees. Also included in these budgets is the DSA mandates that we can spend up to 20% of our construction budget on ADA upgrades. So that is figured into our overall construction budgets. So for Hillsdale, the budget was $37 million. I think we found some efficiencies for how to do that. We've got a better interpretation of the energy code than the last budgets that were done. So we're approximately 16 million under budget. Next slide, please. For Aragon High School, there was a quantity bust in the original estimate. I think it was pulled off at the wrong scale. So similarly, same contingency, same ADA contingency. On that one, you can see it was basically 50% off on the numbers. So we're considerably over budget on Aragon. Next slide, please. On Mills, we're back to the standard pattern. Again, same contingencies and same cadre of fees. And we're pretty confident that we're going to slide through DSA without too much damage on these based on the system that we've come up with. Next slide, please. So these projects are going to be fairly intrusive on the campuses. We're going to have scaffolding all the way around the buildings. The first 20 feet is going to be pretty much inaccessible. We're having to pull all of the windows out and the majority of the doors, exterior doors, out of the buildings and put them back. So we are planning to do this over 2 summers. And you look at the kind of the details on the schedule. We have a construction period that I'm calling encapsulation phase 1, and then I'm calling it details. And what I mean by details is we may still be doing some painting after the summer's over. We may still be putting up some signage and doing some cleanup work, caulking and sealants, that type of thing. But the bulk of the framing, doors, windows, and plaster work will take place over summer 2022. We'll wrap up going into the fall, into November. We'll come back summer of 2023 and repeat the process over again. The curb appeal work, like you see at Mills with the shade structures and the landscaping, the curb appeal work at Hillsdale with the skylights and the concrete work, all likely to take place second summer. That's it for the Transite projects. I can move through the other ones quickly, or we can break for questions now if you choose.
Does the board have any questions on M1? Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, we got trustee Leesdwyer with the motion, trustee Land with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga,
Yes.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Leesdwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I vote yes, that passes 5-0. M2.
Can I just say one thing here? We're also, we have plans to handle staff and other pieces while this work is being done. The campuses will be empty of people. So that's an important part. And that work is, we're all set for that as well.
And Dr. Skelly, I would like to just give a shout out to our site teams who have had a lot of staff time on these projects, including teachers, classified staff, administrators, and even a couple of students in there. So I just want to thank them for all their dedication on these projects. It's very helpful. And I'll turn it back over to Todd Lee for the other projects.
Okay. So if we could move to the next item. This one is not nearly as exciting. The domestic water pipe that runs through the tunnels at the lower level of the Hillsdale campuses is part of the original construction. I think it's 63 or 64. And it's outlived its useful life. There's about 1,500 feet of pipe down there that's not presently leaking, but has leaked in the past. It's been repaired more times than is left in it. So if we can go to the next slide. Overall budget for the project is $600,000. We're currently sitting at $584,000, again with the usual array of contingencies. This is not a DSA project. It's purely a maintenance project. So we're just going to finish up our drawings and get this one out to bid. Next slide, please. And it is a classic summer project. Construction documents through December, bid and award into the early spring. The way procurement's going, we want as much time as possible to get the pipe procured and at the site. So when we're ready to start, all the materials are there. And then it's a quick 9-week project. to remove the existing pipe and replace it with the new. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Board have any questions? Trustee Lee Dwyer.
Will this be going on at the same time the transite panels are going on?
Yes, ma'am, but this is underground in the tunnels. So,
Okay, but it's going to be busy. The campus is going to be busy.
It's going to be extremely busy.
Yeah.
The transite alone is going to probably have over 100 workmen on site at any one point in time.
Wow. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
A second.
Trustee Lamb with the motion, trustee Hanley with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Yes, and thank you for all the presentations. I appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Trustee Land. Trustee Land.
Yes.
Okay, trustee Lees Dwyer.
Did you call on me?
Yes.
Yes. I dropped
Trustee
my
Hanley.
phone.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. M2 passes 5-0. M3.
So this one is a little bit more exciting. Your current public address system is considerably outdated, probably more than anything. The complaint is the speaker system. The new system has a lot more capability. One of the things that we're looking at is speakers that have a built-in LED visual cueing system. So you can have different colors assigned to different conditions. For example, a lockdown might trigger a code red. You can, from the office, light up all the speakers with a red LED in the classrooms. It also enables you to build in a phone book to have paging to any number of phone numbers that you choose to load into the system. So you can, if you do trigger a lockdown, for example, you can automatically page parents to let them know what's happening with the pre-recorded message on their phones. Next slide, please. So we are a little bit over budget on it. It was the decision to go with the electrified speakers, which each require a 110 volt circuit to operate them for that visual cueing. But it replaces all 679 speakers in the district, as well as another close to 300 outdoor speakers, as well as a new head-in system that works from a desktop. We looked at about 4 different systems and chose this one. It's manufactured by a company that's based out of Petaluma, so you've got local support. Again, we're a little over budget, and it is due to the upgrade schedule. Next slide, please. One of the things we're doing with this is doing it as a design build project. So our architect would put together bridging documents that show the speakers and the locations that they need to go in and the specifics. We'll put it out on the street for the contractors to do the completion of the design and the design build documents. It does not have to go to DSA. And so we will do bid and award in December through February. We'll complete our construction documents going into the mid-April, and then final design approval will come back to you at the April 21st board meeting with the final bid price as well, and then submittals and procurement and a summer installation. This one is relatively low impact on the sites. The speakers install literally within an hour or 2 in each of the rooms, and then the exteriors won't be an issue at all. The head-in installations we'll do all together. That's basically pulling out a rack that exists in the offices and replacing it with a computer system. That takes about a day. We typically do that on an off shift, so starting at 10 o'clock at night. And having it installed the next morning, and then having the training coincide with that. So again, 9 weeks over the summer, we get all of the PAs changed out. And I'll take questions on that one if there are.
I move approval.
Second.
Trustees Lees Dwyer with the motion, trustee Land with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga,
Yes.
trustee Land,
Yes.
trustee Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Okay, Division of Human Resources, N1.
No, I think there's one more, M4.
Yep.
Sorry, it's at the bottom of my page. Schematic, M4 schematic design drawing for district-wide path of travel lighting.
So next slide, please. So this one was identified in the Measure L project list for areas of underlit paths of travel on the sites. In the last few months, we've conducted photometric studies of all the areas and identified not all areas underlit on the campus, but where folks are traveling to that might be in off hours that are underlit. The good news is we were considerably less, that we were estimating as many as 20 light fixtures per campus, and I think we're something like 57 total on there. One of the unique pieces that Gelfand Partners, the architect for this project, has brought to the table is where we are using solar light fixtures for these. So not only sustainable, but also considerably less cost because we're not running line voltage to them. I should say there are a couple that we don't have a good enough sun exposure. We will have to run power to, but for the bulk of them, they are going to be solar light fixtures. Significantly under budget. Original budget was $600,000 per campus. At 3.6 million, we're sitting at 1.739 currently, and the schedule is just again a summer project. So with that, if you have any questions,
I make a motion to approve the project.
Second.
Trustee Lamb with the motion, trustees Lees Dwyer with the second, trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land, how do you vote? Trustee Lees Dwyer.
Yes, I like lights.
I am. Solar lights, trustee Hanley, how do you vote?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and M4 will pass 5-0.
thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming to this meeting late at night.
Division of Human Resources, N1 personnel actions.
Yes, we have the personnel actions and addendum. We have a recognition and then a script to read for our administrative contract. The recognition is in regards to Stephen Wiegand, facilities maintenance foreperson, has submitted his retirement effective at the December 28th, 2021. Mr. Wiegand has been with the district for 19 years and 10 months. And then we have a script to read.
Right, this is, I'll read this. This is last board meeting, we read all the administrative salaries and information. One employee was left out, Mr. Yancey Hawkins. The following are the compensation terms for the Associate Superintendent Chief Business Officer that include a one-time payment of $2,000, health and welfare benefits up to $26,085, transportation and cell reimbursements of $275 a month, various subscriptions and membership and reimbursements for approved district expenses. He's at level 9, salary is $247,951, 221 workdays.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to accept personnel actions and addendum?
I'll move approval.
Second. Is there?
I'll second.
Okay. We got the motion by trustee Hanley, and I think the motion was trustees Lees Dwyer, although it sounded like trustee Andrade Zuniga.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing came on, the little light came on with Lees Dwyer, and I didn't see the little thing come on magically. So anyway, we got it straight. So trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land.
Yes.
Trustee Lees Dwyer.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and personnel actions pass 5-0. And in two, review, discuss, approve job title, job description for a new position.
Yes, thank you. As the board knows, athletics continue to grow in many ways. During the pandemics, its importance was highlighted in that it was one of the few ways that students could stay personally connected to school and their friends. Since the pandemic, the work involved in managing athletics has expanded in terms of safety and security, transportation eligibility, air quality, adjusting to the later bell schedule, along with all the usual tasks. Although our athletic directors are very efficient and experienced and talented in keeping all of these different parts of athletics afloat, they would certainly benefit from some assistance. This position, the athletic coordinator position, would be centrally located at the district office, but it would provide assistance to all the school sites for their athletics program, and also the ELD intramural program, which now is mainly soccer. And this position should save, will save the ADs time and site administrators as well. So this is for your consideration and approval if possible.
Any questions, comments, or discussion? Trustee Land.
Actually, Linda's first, but I'll go next.
I'm sorry, I didn't see. Okay.
A little figure waving.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Trustee Leeswater.
I think this is a step in the right direction, because I believe that if we take all of the, a lot of the clerical administrative type work off of the athletic directors, they can focus on other things that they need to get done. And I think that they need the support. I really do. So I think that it seems like it's a very long list of essential functions, and we'll see how it plays out. When I kind of imagine this, I saw an assistant at each, a kind of a smaller position at each site. But I think the district, having one person in the district might be the way to go. I don't know, obviously. Thank you.
Okay, did we get a motion?
Greg had to say something.
Oh, sorry, Greg, go ahead.
She was basically, I knew she would say this. So yes, I'm glad we're doing something like this, and it kind of connects to what we were talking about earlier by relieving the ADs of certain paperwork so that they can do their paperwork.
Yeah. Do their other jobs. Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
So we got Trustee Land with the motion, Trustee Leeswater with the second, Trustee Andrade Zuniga. How do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land.
Yes.
Trustee Leeswater. Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, and two will pass 5-0. And three, approve the memorandum of understanding between the San Mateo Union High School District and the San Mateo County Office of Ed.
We had a memorandum of understanding with Alder last year. We wanted to have one again this year. I mentioned this in the presentation. Alder is a county-sponsored program for teacher residencies, and it seeks diverse candidates, and it's mostly focused on special education, which is an area in which we have, usually have a high level of need and high level of turnover. So this MOU would be basically a continuation of what we had last year.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, Trustee Leeswater with the motion, Trustee Hanley with the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land.
Yes.
Trustee Leeswater.
Yes.
Trustee Hanley.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, and that item will pass 5-0. In four, public hearing, Adult School Federation of Teachers contract reopener. Dr. Black, do you have anything to say?
Okay, this is for the adult school teachers reopeners for this year, and they include proposals for 5% salary increase, paid prep time, adding additional salary steps, and lowering the level of hours for benefits, or which you are eligible for benefits, and then expanding benefits to spouses, domestic partners, and children, and adding dental coverage. And this is the AFT unit at the adult school.
Okay, so we gotta have a public hearing, so I'm gonna open a public hearing. Are there any speakers, Ms. Chalkley?
No, there are no speakers.
Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing and move on to N5 public hearing on San Mateo Union High School District contract reopener for 21-22 for adult school.
Right, this is a public hearing for the district's reopeners to the adult school AFT unit. And in that, the district would add compensation for professional learning community work, PLCs. Also offer additional compensation for teacher leaders, and then provide language that would allow for virtual classes at the adult school.
Okay, I'm gonna open a public hearing. Are there any speakers? Ms. Chalkley?
No, there are no
Okay, I'm
speakers.
gonna close that public hearing and move on to N7, N6 being pulled. N7 presentation of the San Mateo Union High School District contract reopeners.
Yeah, yes, I did that for N5, so.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna move, there's no action required on that. Looks like we're gonna be at Q1. Mr. Hawkins, the resolution 21-2208.
Yeah, this is just a repeat of the item that we did before, but now we're sort of double dotting and double crossing Ts. So we ask for your approval.
I don't think did we literally mean double crossing Ts, or do we just mean verifying dotted Ts or something? Anyway.
This has been reviewed and by legal and pre-approved by the state agency, which it will go to. So all we need is approval and we will cross those Ts and dot those Is, President Griffin.
Here. So is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Trustee Hanley with the motion. Second. And Trustee Land with the second. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
Trustee Lees Dwyer?
Yes.
Trustee Hanley?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Q1 passes 5-0. Oh boy, is there there's no more Qs. So we're at Rs. The board stipend, approval to increase the board trustee stipend, R1. Now I guess
$35. How much does it? $10? What is it, Peter?
I think it's something like $33, something like that.
Figured you would know.
Something like that.
Okay, so we're
We
going
get
up.
overtime after 10 o'clock.
Let's hope we don't.
It's structured that way.
Yeah, let's hope we don't have to find out tonight.
Okay.
So
I move approval.
Okay.
To be retroactive to July 1st.
Okay, so the motion is it to be retroactive to the start of the, okay.
It should be.
Okay, so we have a motion.
And
To,
I'll second the motion.
we got Trustee Lees Dwyer with the motion, Trustee Hanley with the second, Trustee Andrade Zuniga. How do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
Trustee Lees Dwyer?
Yes.
Trustee Hanley?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes, and that'll pass 5-0. Okay, R2 is the consent agenda criteria.
Yep.
So we want to make our meetings as efficient as possible here, and we offered some suggestions. I think you guys already discussed part of this, which was how to handle resolutions, and it sounds like you'd like those even before consent. We'll check about, I think that's legal. There's no problem with doing that. So it sounds like there was unanimity among the board on that piece. The other piece is we were talking about adding a warrants document. Mr. Hawkins, maybe you could talk a little bit about that. That's been done in other districts and perhaps in places that you've been as well. And then the contracts, every district does different things. We're spending time on some very small contracts that take a lot of time to process and put together. And we think it could be more efficient in terms of staff time to have a threshold under which those would be handled in some other way. So those are the suggestions here. I don't know if you want to talk about the warrants at all, Mr. Hawkins, but we certainly take directions from the board on this.
On the warrants, I think it's a really good piece of transparency because it's good to approve the contracts, but at the end of the day, it's what actually goes out the door that I think is important. And so I think that's an important piece of transparency. And then I also think it could give us a little bit more support around if we're going to be doing contracts of say 5,000 or above. Every contract, whether it's 99 cents or $100,000 in terms of payments, we'll get onto that warrant reports. So I think that allows that dovetails well with the workaround contracts and maybe changing those thresholds of going to the board. I do know that there is a lot of work in my office and especially in your office, Dr. Skelly, around those smaller contracts.
Yeah, I said trustee Lee Dwyer.
I didn't hear you. You didn't say anything where the words came out audibly.
I'm running out of gas. My electric battery is dying.
Well, your solar battery is low. I want to leave it the way it is. I see no reason to change this. I don't believe, I can't see that it's going to it hasn't taken too much time for many years. All of a sudden we're having this problem. I don't think it's a problem. And I want to see all of them. So if it's not going to be on this, I'm going to ask for all of them anyway. But the other piece to this is I would be okay if money that is not the ASB, if it's ASB money or if it's foundation money under 25, I'm not sure we have any real, I guess we have jurisdiction of it, but that's got a different procedure and approval process. So I would be okay with that. But I don't want to change. I don't want to change. I want to see the contracts and I'm going to ask for them if they're not on there. And I believe there's no reason for this change, for a change.
Any other questions?
I mean, I'd be fine without, I don't need to see like contracts under $5,000 that have been approved. I mean, if it's taking a lot of time to put those things together, I mean, I personally don't need to see those things. I mean, we're a huge district. That's very small amounts of money, and it's probably taking more time to put them together than it's worth in terms of staff time and clerical time. I mean, there's diminishing returns on this kind of work, and I just don't think it. I don't think it's worth, putting that kind of effort into it when, it doesn't amount to much.
Every dime counts. I want to see it. I don't see any reason to change it. We're paying people. They're making good salaries to do this work. Nothing has changed. If anything, it should be more efficient because we have better technology now than we had 10 years ago. So I want to see it. And I believe that there's no reason the public should be denied seeing these, that when they've been seeing them for all these years, there's no reason to take them off. I can't come up with a reason that makes any sense to take them off. We should look at technological efficiencies and how to do it better. Maybe that's the answer. Use technology better, but I want to see them because, I read them all and over time, I see repetitive issues. And I want to keep seeing that. I want to see them. So
I got a question on the this warrant report. What would be in a warrant report and how would it be generated?
So they would be generated out of our financial system. Every school financial
Spreadsheet.
system has a warrant report that can be pulled for board. You see these in a lot of districts that do them, but they can have various fields. But you're basically just pulling out vendors, amounts, any comments, potentially account codes, so you know where they're getting charged.
So we wouldn't necessarily know what the payment was for. We would know.
You can choose to add fields such as the summary that's on the purchase order or other information out of the financial system.
that's going to be a lot of data. That's going to be, but that's an easy report to run. You just program what you need. I don't mind having that in addition, if that's what you want to do.
So Ms. Leastwire, we're fine with your amendment. And if it's already been approved by the ASB or the foundation, then that's fine. And you'd pick it up in the warrants report. So with that,
that's their money.
Yeah. So
or
with that,
PTO money.
Yeah.
I don't want to see PTO money.
Yeah.
That's their decision.
So we're fine with that amendment. That's fine. And we will, I do think, I frankly, most of the districts I've worked at have done the warrant, and it's sometimes helpful.
Well, can we try the warrant too?
Sure.
And see what it's like?
Yeah,
I think I'm getting more actually.
Yeah, you're getting more than you started with.
I'm okay with that.
That's good. I think we're fine.
Yeah. Trustee Land.
I'm going to put my 2 cents in. I'm with Peter. If it's under 5,000, I don't really care one way or the other.
Then don't read it.
I know, but I get an opinion, and I'm just putting it forward.
I know, but
no,
I mean,
it's just I think there's a limit, and then I think 5,000 is my limit.
We are accountable for these funds. I don't know that. I mean, the contracts would tell us a lot per se about what's happening, because it's really the money coming in probably just as much as it is the money going out. So there ought to be, and I guess there ought to be a way to automate the process. But part of the issue here is we don't use any sort of contract generating templates or any sort, our purchase system must be fairly old and antiquated, because every contract is on somebody else's contract, and all the terms and conditions are different, and all of that.
Like no refunds on a trip.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of our concern is we don't know whose contract we're using and what kind of terms we have. And I wish there was a way we could cut down on that, but until we do, we could. And I don't know from a standpoint, how much time are we spending assembling those small contracts, and how much will we save with the proposed modification now?
Probably about half, because a lot of them are foundation and other PTO funds.
In the interest of time, can we just do that? Take Linda's amendment.
Let's do that for now, and then if we'll come back and study it, and we'll come back if we need to.
Is this where I'm supposed to admit that I used to do auditing? Probably not. Only for 10 years.
Okay, so we have a path forward. Doesn't look like it takes any action.
Right. Thank you for the input.
Okay, we got our R3 specific board policies, June 2021 updates, part 2.
They're all CSBA stuff.
Yeah, they looked okay to me. I didn't have any particular questions.
We'll bring these back for consent next time.
Okay. Let me see.
9:54. We're not on overtime yet.
So
Okay.
It's over.
Till 10.
Okay,
The next
so
item is, I want to make a couple of comments about the requested board items.
Yeah.
Just one is that in terms of the flag question, Mr. Griffin, you and I spoke about this, and our thought was that we would ask the District Equity Committee to look at some criteria around flags, that they would do the work on this this topic and then bring it back for your approval. And then when and if we get requests for specific flags, you would have some criteria that you could use to judge that. And I've spoken to Dr. Kemke, and her committee is, or her committee, it's the district's committee is prepared to do that. So with your permission, we'd like to take this off the list and then get your permission to have that group do the work, and then we'll obviously have staff review it, but then bring it back to you at a future date.
yeah, I'd like to have a date certain on that future date.
Yeah.
But
Can I talk to Dr. Kemke, and we'll put that in a weekly.
that is fine.
And if you don't like the date, you can move it around.
I just suggest we leave it on there with the TBD, and then we can.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree. I just want to make sure that it has it, like it stays on our radar because it's important.
So I would like to suggest that we consider the vaccination issue again. I'd like to join Mr. Childress in supporting Mr. Childress' suggestion that we take up superintendent's proposal from last meeting, and I would withdraw my effort to amend his proposal and see if there's some support for bringing an either-or proposal, which was his original proposal that was tabled at the last meeting. If we could bring that back and consider it quickly, not with another 2-hour discussion of it. I think we discussed it adequately. But if there's support for doing an either or, I'm very concerned that we've got 1,100, 1,200 unvaccinated students that are not being even tested. And I would like to encourage them to get vaccinated, or at least we test them. We had 2 votes for doing that at the last meeting. If we could get, a third vote, some support for moving Dr. Skelly's proposal forward relatively quickly at a meeting where it's not going to be a 2-hour debate, I would like to bring it back at the October 28th meeting.
I agree with Trustee Hanley. I think we have to do something.
So rather than put you
I
in a
don't.
position, well, okay, so I want to be sure here that you.
I want 2 hours. If we're going to do this, we're going to have 2 hours. We're gonna
Okay,
have student
so-
input.
So what I would suggest is that you not vote tonight. I think our
We can't vote tonight.
right, exactly. And so
It's a request for a future.
right, and I think we have bylaws that say that if 2 board members want something on the agenda, then that
It needs
is
to.
what we would do.
Yes.
So
It should be reconsidered.
Well, I'm not weighing in on that. I'm weighing in on the fact that what time do we start on the 28th?
we start our regular meeting at 7 o'clock.
Or what time do we start the student session, and what time do we start the closed session?
We anticipate starting closed session at either 4 or 4:30.
So we're gonna go from 4 till,
Oh,
see, I mean, that's the part.
Yeah, I had to quit
Yeah,
work for
I
that.
actually can't make it at 4, so I don't think that's okay.
So we have a logistical issue we need to deal with. I'm very much in favor of discussing it again. I don't know that I have, and you know, this board meeting, even though it's 10 o'clock, this seems relatively, you know, it's not difficult as difficult as some of these other meetings where there's a lot of stress and stuff. And I don't know that I could take 5 or 6 hours. Leaving, you know, I leave work early too, like everybody else, but
Why are we doing it 4?
because the students are coming in with input between the, you know, the regular meeting and the.
Can we start a little later? I can't go that
It's your board meeting. If we can do whatever you want. We can move the student discussion. We can do whatever the pleasure of the board is.
We have to leave substantial time, and we have to make sure that everyone is notified that this is going to be, that people know this is going to be on the agenda, so we can get student input, parent input, teacher input, we can get all of it. And we can't cut the time on it.
So how are we?
I mean, I'll test till the cows come home. I'm totally into testing, but
Linda,
you know, we need to talk about the rest.
How are we structuring the meeting? That's what I'd like to know, because if we're starting earlier,
I know.
you know, it's like, tell me the structure of the meeting. And if we have 2 things on the agenda, Peters and the student input, that's fine. I don't want a million other things on the agenda.
We have no idea what's on the agenda.
Yeah, we do. We do. At
Well,
this
some
point,
of us do.
Some of us do more than others.
Right. So there are some items that are scheduled for the 28th. The one item that we haven't taken on that was on the list is an update about last summer's summer program. Other than that, I don't see, at least right now, a whole bunch of other items that were scheduled for the 28th during open session.
I just say we need to limit any other presentations and just do the student presentation, and then have Peter's agenda item reconsidered as main part of our meeting.
Okay, I'll work with Mr. Hanley and Mr. Griffin with the understanding that the board, and they're hearing this too, that you want a short agenda with the exception of this item, if that's the board's pleasure.
And the students, right?
Students would be part of the pre-meeting, but we could start the board meeting later. Or...
Sadly, I cannot leave work before 4.
Okay, so 4:30 is your start time.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We won't start before 4:30.
It's fine.
Okay, I guess that's it. And I guess the meeting is adjourned. So good night.